Junior.
Looking there at a scene from The Porter, which you can watch on CBC Gem and which has just received 19 nominations for Canadian Screen Awards. Gearing up for the biggest week in Canadian film and television, the nominations just out this morning. Eli talked about this series, reviewed it on our program, and so we begin right there because Eli's back to talk about the nominations. You liked it and clearly richly rewarded, Eli, with 19 noms.
Richly rewarded. It's just an impressive series, what they were able to do, kind of bringing back that sense of life in the 1920s in Canada. We'll get back to that, but let's go back to my first love, which is film, and begin with a remarkable film which is opening in March across Canada, but already leading the pack in terms of cinematic nominations this morning for the Canadian Screen Awards. I'm talking about Brother from Clement Virgo. This is a great filmmaker, and this is an amazing story about, as you might guess, two brothers growing up in Scarborough. There you see Lamar Johnson. Maybe you just watched him on The Last of Us, a TV series, also shot in Canada. But this is a great version of kind of a family affair, heartbreaking at times. 14 nominations this morning. Then let's move on and take a look at Viking. Now, this is a really interesting film shot in Quebec. Quebec, always a monster when it comes to nominations. The idea is citizens are pretending to be astronauts to go through the kind of psychological duress of simulating a Mars mission, and as you might imagine, chaos ensues. And then David Cronenberg, I mean, the range this year in the nominations, David Cronenberg coming back with Crimes of the Future with 11 nominations. Cronenberg, telling a story about love and lust and bodies in the way that only he can, and again, the Academy awarding him. Now, let's go then move on to television and go back to The Porter, because just remarkable. I remember talking to the creators of this series when they were just starting to put this thing on the rails, the life of black railway porters. Some who are just doing this as a job, some are doing this as a way to push for their own rights, and this is now leading the pack with 19 remarkable nominations. I remember talking to the filmmakers about the effect of seeing these black stories with just like the extras that were on set in Winnipeg, and seeing the black cinematographers, the black assistant directors, and of course the black actors on screen, and the effect of that, and this slice of Canadian history, which is on CBC and the BET channel. And then also 15 nominations. Let's move on to Sort of, now in a new season. Bilal Baig, amazing show that is a hit in Canada, a hit around the world, and doing very well this morning with 15 nominations at the Canadian Screen Awards, Heather.
And as I said, this is a whole week-long celebration, yes. So there's a lot more in terms of nominations. But what's interesting is this is the first time these awards are going to be handed out in person. COVID shut things down. It was all virtual. So what do we expect now that the show is back?
So it's interesting you mentioned that. So when we were during the pandemic, we would have a climax on Sunday that would be a pre-taped gala, but not like a live televised broadcast award show, as you'd expect, as we see with the BAFTAs, as we see with the Oscars. The interesting thing is this year, the final show, the big show on Sunday night, which will be 8 p.m. on CBC TV and Gem, it will still be pre-taped and packaged. So this will be the climax after 4 nights of awards, handing out awards, which will be live but not broadcast, various genres, so television, news, sports, etc. But then the final thing will be a pre-taped package hosted by Samantha Bee, and having some very special awards recipients like Ryan Reynolds, like Catherine O'Hara. But as you might imagine, the fact that there won't be this live awards broadcast gala, there is, I think it's fair to say, some frustration in the industry. Eugene Levy saying this doesn't do the industry justice. Some nominated directors saying they were looking forward to celebrating with their peers. Now, I had a chance to talk to Tammy Frick. She is the CEO of the Academy of Canadian Cinema and Television, and she's making the case that being able to kind of cherry pick moments from those other awards presentations during the week and then putting them in this pre-tape package allows them to basically cover more ground. Take a look.
This is just helping us capture a little bit more of a larger review of what's happened in the year and keeping it an exciting, entertaining piece of content that we're putting out there to the world to say, this is the influence that Canadians have. These are shows that are being watched not just here, but globally. It helps us tell the stories of the storytellers. And, we don't really know what we don't know. Change is good sometimes, and we're trying something different.
So they're trying something different. I think, to be honest, it's always been a challenge to try and get the eyeballs and try and, find a way to have that live, big, fancy gala. But at the same time, it is wonderful to be there in the room. The past number of years before the pandemic, it was at Meridian Hall here in Toronto. And I think there is a sense that you want to have that red carpet moment. You want to be able to celebrate with your peers. There will be those smaller moments, but the final result will be prepackaged. So we'll see how that goes. The fun starts, Heather, on Tuesday with, I believe, the news program awards, which this very show, I think I read, was nominated. So congratulations. There you go.
I was going to say, it may not be a huge moment, but we're having our own moment this morning as a team nominated for Best Morning Show. And you share in that because you're with us every Friday. So there's a piece of that for you in that nomination,
thank you.
Eli. And we should shout out, why don't we, when we talk about news, of course, all of the writers and producers and all of the studio crew above me and the crew that puts the show together. Takes a village and an army. It certainly does. But CBC colleagues like Fifth Estate, The National,
very much
all of the news network people who put together coverage, for example, of the Pope in Canada and of the convoy protests a year ago. So all of that is part of the news nomination. So we're happy to be part of that group as well. Thank you, Eli, for coming in today and for your regular Friday visits. We always appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Thanks.